think, let's get to the question that I think is on everyone's mind right now. Germany or Brazil?
I knew you were going to ask that. It's going to upset my German boss, but I'm rooting for Brazil. But I think the Germans are too technical, so I'm going to say Germany's going to win.
So, foot in either camp, but your heart's going to get broken by Germany.
The question is what the heck all of you are going to do in here between 1 and 3.
Yeah. I'm glad we're going early. That's all I have to say. And if you don't see us, we're right there in the corner.
Yeah, we're here.
1 and 3. You're just missing us. So, if we were to sit down a year or two ago, I think, we would have been having this conversation about, what's going to really, what segment will really mobile shine in. And for better or worse, I think we're in this position. We've, found it. It's app installs, and it's created this huge boom. Is that all good? Is it all bad? Is it a mixed bag? Where are we?
And this is a topic I'm sure many people in the audience can answer as well as I could. I think my answer on that is that it's a good start. And I think it's the cleanest, most attributable business model that we've seen in mobile because you know if something's installed or not, right? Obviously there's some complication about what media motivated that install, but I think the simplest thing is we see a sign of when you can track what happened, how much marketers can spend and how valuable an event that is for marketers. Now I also think that an app install is just the beginning, and as many people here are leading with analytics to see more about lifetime value and what people do after that install. And I think we're starting to see the business models built around reacquisition because just getting someone to install the app is the beginning. You want them to play a game or book an airline ticket or find a restaurant. And all of that is about re-engaging that audience. So I think if we stop at app install, we haven't really solved the problem, but it was a great start. I think it demonstrates how strong a business model can be.
Because when I think about it, if you look at TV, huge ad business, the most directly attributable TV ad would probably be for like the ShamWow. If it works, I buy a ShamWow. But I suspect that there's actually more money from Apple and Chevrolet than there is from the ShamWow people. Do we risk, because these app install ads work well and we can track them, do we risk becoming a little narrowly focused on them?
Listen, I'm the first to say, and we at Google are first to say that mobile is a fantastic, and digital is a fantastic branding platform and driving awareness and driving engagement, even if that doesn't result in me buying the paper towels or the car or the hotel room in that moment. And so I think if we only invest in the classic direct response attributable media, then we're not seeing the full value of the platform, and that there's an entire generation of people who are consuming video and who are consuming all this content on this platform. And I would encourage all the entrepreneurs in the audience to think about the needs of a branding-oriented marketer on this platform as well. And I don't think as an industry we've cracked that well enough yet.
Cool, and we'll get back to sort of the bigger thing, but I want to pick up on something that you were saying, which is, one starting place is these, is somebody installing the app. What we've started to see is a lot of companies built around, okay, that app's on my phone, great. Chances are I downloaded it, I got my 30 free coins or whatever it was that prompted me to download it in the first place, but I haven't opened it in 6 months. How important is that next cycle of behaviors? Again, just look at these app ads, but that's getting me to open that app, that's getting me to do something with that.
Well, I think what you have to remember is that outside of our industry, the people who attend events like this, installing an app is not a typical marketing end. The marketing end is, as we said, is getting someone to walk into your taco restaurant, or is getting someone to engage with your product, whatever that is. And so if you go ask the classic marketers out there and category managers, they have goals that are not install the app, right? They have downstream goals. They want you to buy a fork. And as a result, we have to think about those downstream goals. And the way you do that is, yes, you've developed a relationship with that customer because they installed your app, whatever that app is. But then you need to market to them and come back and remind them of the value proposition. When you're looking for a hotel, Matt mentioned Hotel Tonight. Use Hotel Tonight and remember what a great experience that is. And so what I'd encourage everybody to think about is, what are those downstream marketing goals, whether that's an in-app purchase or the purchase of a physical world thing in a physical store, and market toward those, and use the fact that you've got the foothold of the app install as the starting point of the conversation with the customer, not as the end.
And in this app world, have we gone too far in this notion of everything is an app, everything should be an app, let's have a million apps? Does everything need to be an app? I feel like I've been asking that question for a couple of years, but I feel like finally we're starting to see some signs that maybe, the whole world should not be into a silo of grids of apps.
There are certain discovery in app stores and in play, as well as certain niche or narrow technical reasons that you need to have access to certain APIs and all that stuff. More broadly, the advice that we give our customers is, certainly for the Fortune 1000 customers out there, you need to have a mobile site, and about 70% of our customers have an app as well. Whether that should be 50, whether that should be 75% of the customers, I do think some people build apps for the purpose of building an app as an end, and now we're saying, well, I've got 22,000 installs and it doesn't seem to be moving, what the heck do I do with this thing? So I think where we'll settle is that most significant companies will want to have an app for their app, and this is outside of gaming and some of the people who are app-centric business models. Most significant companies will have an app for their best customers. There are 3, 4, 7% of their customers who type in their URL, who bookmark their site, who are their regular best customers, who are members of the Affinity program or the Hyatt Gold, whatever the heck is ours, or Hilton Gold thing. But for the other 90-something%, you need to invest in the experience that people have on the web. We don't have a bias for apps or web. Most of the tools we built enable the link to go to the apps or the web, and there's a lot of innovative work happening around having links that are dynamic to go to either. And so I think we're probably at a peak of this distinction between the apps world and the web world. I think what you'll start to see is let's deliver great consumer experiences that don't necessarily have to be bucketed as one or the other, that are the most scalable and work on the most platforms and deliver the experience that the consumer wants.
Does anything come to mind when I ask, who's doing this really well? What's an example of someone that's using mobile not just to get you to download their app, but actually it's compelling for their customers, it's making a big difference in their business? Are there some examples that come to mind?
There's a ton. I think there's people, we talked about close the loop, or the fact that people installed an app. Another area where we have the close the loop and we can attribute it really well is click to call. And so there are a lot of businesses, and I would give the example of pizza delivery, where Papa John's has been incredibly smart about thinking about the evolution of all of us headed home and realizing we don't have dinner, or of college kids sitting in a dorm room drinking beers, watching a World Cup game, wanting a pizza delivered, and thinking about just how easy that experience is. That doesn't require us to type in the word pepperoni and our address and everything, but that enables that click-to-call experience. And so just the ease of engaging, whether it's at the site, in the app, or after a search, and saying, I want to call and connect to food delivery. I want to connect to an insurance company to have a conversation about insurance. I want to connect to make a reservation at a hotel. And so there's countless examples like that. I also like the folks in the app world that store my credential and make it so easy for me to buy. Give the example of staying in the food services category, the idea of like Grubhub and Seamless, where they know my OSHA Tide delivery preferences, and they store my orders, and they know my address, and they've got my credit card. So it's so easy for me to just literally, in that same scenario where I need food, to be able to go on and fulfill that need. But the example there goes back to the earlier conversation. Just installing the app from Grubhub or Seamless wasn't the act. It was getting it to be a part of my normal behavior and understanding just how great an experience that is, that it gets delivered.
Well,
it played so well.
And to your point, it became the most convenient option. I think oftentimes there's an experience on mobile, but it's not necessarily good enough. I mean, people talk about how people use their mobile to browse, but they do their transactions on the desktop. How much of that is because people really want to go open their laptop, and how much is most people are doing it wrong in mobile?
So I think that's the secret that everybody here knows, and that we don't have to tell the big companies of the world. But that part of my job is to coach the Fortune 1000, which is the companies that weren't born in this ecosystem are having trouble with the transition. The companies that weren't born in the world of mobile are the CMO may get it, and the CMO's office may get it, but they have to go convince the IT department to go build them a killer mobile site. And there's not a lot of sort of prior art on how to do that. So in comes someone who can be nimble, whether that's Papa John's or Grubhub, who solves the problem, because as consumers, we all know what we want. I want to order food and have it show up. But it's proving very hard because of inertia for these bigger corporations to pivot and deliver these experiences. And that creates the opportunity for the innovative companies like the Hotel Tonights and the Lyfts and the Ubers and the Grubhubs to solve the problem that we as consumers all want. So yes, there will be certain things I want to go back to the PC and have a keyboard for. But I think increasingly what we're seeing is, yes, you can solve the problem in mobile, entirely deliver the experience in mobile, if you get the UX right.
One of the things that you mentioned that I think is kind of counterintuitive, but potentially really useful, is this idea that if the web really benefited and prioritized and incentivized the sort of biggest companies to get bigger, mobile offers an opportunity for local companies to get back in the game.
Yes.
Talk a little bit about why you think that is.
Well, I think where mobile was when Matt started this conference, whether that was, I think he said 7 or 8 years ago. 7, Matt? He's not listening. 7 years ago, when Matt started this conference, where mobile was, I think the art and the science of location is right there now. I think we have an incredibly powerful signal when you think about relevance. Matt talked in the open about the failure to deliver what he wanted when he searched on Barada. He wanted something that was within a certain radius of where he was. And as an industry, there are certainly some people who really get that. But there's a lot of people that are still taking a national or a statewide or even maybe an international strategy to this, have not thought about the granularity that local provides. And if you think about the local car dealership or movie theater chain or whatever it is, they've had a disadvantage because of the scale of media buying has been national for a long time. And I certainly think that scale remains. But the idea that I can solve that consumer's problem and I can target locally and not have the waste of running out of state or running out of where somebody wouldn't drive to my movie theater, and just target the right area and deliver that locally relevant message that says, hey, I'm the movie theater down the street and I've got the movie that you just searched on or that you were interested in or that you just watched a trailer for, I think is a great equalizer between the SMBs of the world, which is a hard term to define, but the smaller companies of the world, and the big national companies have been able to use their scale and their size to buy media in a way that wasn't available. So I think solving the problem for the local marketer is a massive opportunity.
But clearly they're going to need help. I mean, they're not going to do it on their own. I mean, for the same reason they weren't quick to set up their own websites, and it's a tough problem to solve. I mean, if you look at local restaurants that are doing well, they're doing well because Seamless and Grubhub and these companies came in and found a way to make their business mobile enabled. I mean, it's, we see this, I think hair salons have one where, they're booking systems, but it seems like they're going to need help.
Yep. So we agree. We're investing heavily to help them, whether that's the simple things like building sites and apps and understanding how to use location signals, or whether it's developing those aggregator things. So I think there's a huge opportunity, and obviously we have a play in that, and Yelp does, and I know Twitter's investing in all of that. But I think there's a big opportunity in the aggregator space around local, which, as you say, Grubhub is one of those. There's all the services that help you find the local plumber or the local whatever. But I think that's where we're going to see a lot of the innovation is that increasingly mobile is about solving problems. And if the local experiences and the national ones haven't built the right efficient way of solving that with the right UX, then there's a gap. And we all as consumers know what we want, but I'm not positive that's yet been cracked. So entrepreneurial opportunity for everybody out there.
I want to take a step back and look at the broader mobile advertising business. How healthy is it? It seems like the wealth and the benefits are still pretty unevenly distributed. How healthy is mobile advertising as an industry?
Well, I think we talked about apps to open. So just starting with apps, I've been amazed at the staying power, the resiliency of the app install market. I worry that it's a little too concentrated. And I know a lot of people here probably have a business model built on that app install world. I hope we see some diversification. I hope that gets beyond loosely the Amazon, eBays, and the games people, and that we see, and the Expedias, and we see a broadening where the Hiltons and the Hyatts and the Avises all sort of get better at this. So I'd like to see the app economy broaden its demand side. More broadly, I think that you could be glasses half full or glass half empty. I'm incredibly optimistic about where we are with mobile. Is that mobile, the consumer got way ahead of the experiences, to your question earlier, is that we all know what we want. We all want the phone to do more and to store that credential, that payment credential, and to help us find that thing. We're using it for just about every decision that we make. The challenge for marketers historically has been the attribution. So many of us look at our phone in a store or find our way to a store or figure out where the Avis or the Hertz dealership is or what the phone number was for the Avis or the Hertz dealership when we're thinking about a rental car, or when we land and need a hotel, we use mobile. Historically, the challenge has been, while we know that's driving behavior, one, the user experiences have not been quality. And two, it's very hard to attribute if the phone goes back in my pocket when I walk into the Nordstrom. And so as an industry, we've gotten better at click to call. We're getting much better at online to store. The experience Matt talked earlier about cross-device, where I do a certain amount of my research on TripAdvisor on my mobile while I'm waiting in the dentist's office, and then I come back on a tablet later, back to mobile and to desktop. As an industry, we've gotten a lot better at that. The attribution problem has held back a lot of the dollars that could flow into this industry, and you're starting to see that cracked by ourselves and Facebook and Twitter and many others. And I think the cracking of that will unlock a lot more dollars, but we've been amazed by how much marketers get this, and despite the fact that their sites and apps aren't where they need to be, and despite the fact that they can't yet attribute, in many cases marketers are spending tens of millions of dollars just to address this marketplace. So we've been amazed at the growth. We think there's many catalysts to come as attribution gets improved. And I think the main thing is what we all know as consumers, which is that this is very much a commercial platform. And so my optimism comes from the place that whether it's local or whether it's the behavior of walking into a store, all of that creates economic value. And that's the amazing entrepreneurial opportunity that we all have in front of us.
I want to get to one or two questions from the audience, but we've been talking about mobile, primarily phones, by extension tablets, but one of the big things that's changing pretty quickly is the advent of wearables and other screens, other advertising potential opportunities. Are any of these, more than, to use Tim Cook's phrase, a hobby for now? I mean, is the watch important? Is glass important anytime soon from an advertising perspective, or do we really have to have a hit before we can talk about advertising?
I think you've seen sort of a stacking of catalysts in the market, and obviously we're all familiar with mobile. Our view is that tablet is distinct from mobile, is that the behavior around tablets in the home and the behavior around sort of the search patterns we see, the YouTube patterns, looks a lot more like a desktop, and I know it has an application environment. But tablet was a catalyst on top of mobile, and we still haven't reached the potential of mobile, and I think we're still seeing scaling in tablet. I think all the wearables will be the next layer of the stack, and obviously we announced at I/O some things with Android and cars, and I think there'll be more opportunity around that. We're not yet thinking about ads in wearables or in the cars environment. We want to crack the user experience. But I think everybody here that develops entrepreneurial endeavors that require the growth of these platforms should feel good that there is no end in sight to the platform level growth and the adoption of these new technologies. And so from my perspective, if I'm a developer, I love that I've got mobile with some running room both domestically and in all these international markets. Tablet adoption still growing rapidly, especially in international markets. And then I've got all these other new things to come so that I can, with confidence, raise that money and start building that experience, knowing that there's all these new platforms on which I can deploy.
Cool. I think there's some microphones out there. We have like a minute left for questions. So I want to get to one or two quickly if you can. Please wait for a mic to come. If you do have a question, raise your hand. If not, I will keep pestering Jason, but I'd love to give you a chance. Not seeing any. Does that mean Joe needs to get out with coffee? I see one in the woman in the black. If we can get a mic.
About the sixth row on the left.
Mic's coming to you right now. Thanks. Raise your hand up. Raise your hand. She's right there. If you can say who you are and what your question is.
Sure. I'm Kelsey Pano. I'm an analyst with SNL Kagan. And I was just kind of curious. You had mentioned some of the improvements that need to take place in attribution. Would you maybe mind describing some of the challenges that you see in the space and what can kind of...
You have to just, I think the attribution challenges is, and we're still learning about all the different consumer behaviors that we need to track. I think obviously the first and foremost you have to talk about is consumer privacy. To the extent that you're using location or you're using the fact that someone signed in, you want to be very, very careful that we respect consumer privacy as we do that. But I think the challenges largely have been if you think about someone who's on a mobile device and we see their behavior. A long time we talked about the idea of the mobile user. Well, what's very clear is that mobile user is also the same user when she's on the PC or when she's on the tablet. And when you want to, frankly, put those cookie bases together so that you can think about that as one user, there's lots of things to navigate and a lot of sort of unwritten rules that, frankly, Google is trying to provide leadership, and I know some of the other bigger companies in the space are as well, around what can we do to deliver a great user experience as well as the attribution that a marketer might want while really being respectful of consumer privacy. So that's one example. I think especially with the location stuff, there's a lot of value if I was in a retail environment of being eventually able, this is an attribution, to use location as a signal to later understand what would be relevant to me. But we also have to be extremely careful that the consumer has opted in and given us permission to do that. And I think the industry is sort of trying to work through all of those. To generalize, what I would say is there's all these new signals and that we all sort of get excited about how to use, but we need to be extremely careful that we're respecting you as a consumer as we build to hopefully deliver you a better experience, that's what you want.
Well, I'm being told, I apologize, I'm being told we're getting the hook, but I know Jason's sticking around, so my guess is a little before 1 you'll be able to find him, and then I think he has a meeting for about 90 minutes, although I heard a rumor it could go 30 minutes extra depending on how it goes. So everyone, thanks to Jason.
Thanks, folks.